Welcome back to Digital Rage. I'm Jeff, the producer here at Fish Tank Digital's Cybersecurity Marketing. This is our first episode in a series of cybersecurity web app integrations using Fish Tank Digital's API libraries. Today, we are going through our proprietary Salesforce web platform integration and our zero data loss architecture, making sure all measured user signals are reported and shared. Our API sync technology makes sure user data is shared by all platforms, allowing for personalization and up-to-the-minute lead data. Here we go.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are taking the sources you shared with us and diving right into the core of the knowledge you need. Today, we're wrestling with a really remarkable irony in the world of high-stakes tech. Cybersecurity companies, they're the absolute masters of protecting external client data from these sophisticated threats. But in too many cases, they are suffering from critical, self-inflicted data blind spots right inside their own funnels.
It's the ultimate security oversight, isn't it? They've built this digital equivalent of a fortified fortress for their clients, but they've left the back door to their own pipeline just wide open. Our mission today is a deep dive into source material describing a highly specialized, and I mean rigorous solution, a zero data loss architecture. And this system is designed specifically for these security firms to integrate their entire Salesforce ecosystem.
That immediately sounds intense. Military-grade integration. That's what the source material keeps calling it. Why does a sales funnel, the thing for tracking leads, why does it need that level of rigidity? And what's this idea of fragmented leads being such a threat?
Well, the necessity, it really stems from the nature of the product they sell.
Trust.
Trust and complete visibility, exactly. If a security firm's own data pipeline lacks integrity, they undermine the very principle they're selling. And fragmented leads, that's intelligence loss in action. So when a high-value prospect, let's say a CISO, that's a Chief Information Security Officer, moves from researching on your website to entering your CRM, that crucial intelligence just vanishes. Attribution, their specific engagement history, the exact path they took, it's all gone.
So the core problem this whole architecture is trying to solve is stopping that intelligence hemorrhage. Because if you lose the context of a CISO's initial engagement, you lose the ability to tailor your pitch to their pain points.
You've got it. If you are selling solutions that require, high fidelity threat detection, your internal sales intelligence has to operate at that same level. When that data breaks, your cost of customer acquisition just skyrockets. For these huge enterprise deals, our sources suggest this blind spot can increase customer acquisition costs by 60% or more.
60%.
Yeah. Simply because marketing can't prove ROI and sales has no context for the conversation.
That makes the stakes extremely high. Okay, so let's unpack the source of this hemorrhage. The sources identified two major vulnerabilities here. The first one is attribution blind spots. What does that actually look like in practice?
It's a massive operational vulnerability. First, you have these high-value leads just arriving as unknown referral sources. They came from somewhere important, maybe a technical forum, a niche newsletter. But the data trail just stops dead the moment they convert.
The black hole of the internet.
Precisely. And second, and this is maybe the most critical for enterprise security firms, is missing first-touch data. Sales cycles in this industry are notoriously long. We're talking 6, 9, sometimes even 12 months. So the initial campaign attribution, the very first thing that got the prospect's attention, is just lost over time because standard tracking cookies expire or the handoffs are messy.
So marketing spends a fortune on a targeted CISO-level campaign. But 6 months later, when the deal closes, they can't prove it. The trail went cold, and the credit goes to the final sales touch. That completely breaks their ability to calculate ROI.
It paralyzes budgeting. And the third blind spot is what they call disconnected activity. The prospect's specific website engagement just never makes it into the Salesforce record. So they might have spent an hour looking at technical documentation, but the sales rep sees a totally empty activity history.
It's like the sales rep is reading an empty file on a prospect who is actually highly engaged. Which I guess brings us to the second big vulnerability, platform fragmentation. So it's not just that the data is missing, it's that the tools themselves aren't talking to each other.
And this is where the operational nightmare really begins. You see these isolated marketing clouds, Pardot specifically, operating without any of that valuable website behavior data. Pardot knows they opened an email, sure, but it has no idea they spent 20 minutes on the pricing page.
And that isolation must cripple their predictive models.
Absolutely. The source specifically mentions incomplete AI profiles. It notes that their predictive engine, which they call Agentforce AI, is making decisions based on totally fragmentary data. I mean, how effective can an AI be if it's missing half the customer's digital footprint? It's going to trigger false negatives, missing huge opportunities, or false positives, which wastes sales resources.
And then you have the ultimate failure point, which is also a huge security risk, manual data entry.
Oh, it's the absolute antithesis of a zero data loss system. Manual entry is inefficient, obviously, but for a security company, the bigger risk is the potential exposure of PII, personally identifiable information. The human element is always the weakest link, right? Anytime a rep has to copy and paste data, you introduce potential integrity issues and compliance failures.
So the bottom line here for you, the listener, is that your current tech stack is probably actively working against your intelligence goals. Your sales teams are approaching CSOs cold without their digital history, and marketing can't measure pipeline ROI.
That's the critical gap in a nutshell.
Okay, so we have the problem deeply defined. Let's talk solutions now. The architecture proposes fixing this by achieving what the sources call a C-level visibility.
It's a really effective analogy. So cybersecurity firms provide security operations centers, SOCs, which offer 24/7 complete forensic visibility into a client's threat landscape. This architecture aims to mirror that exact same rigor, to provide the same level of oversight, but for the marketing and sales pipeline. The goal is simple. Stop guessing which campaigns are driving enterprise pipeline and start treating your sales data like it's military intelligence.
Right, a shift from reactive guessing to proactive, complete surveillance of the funnel. So what's the technical mechanism for achieving this?
It all centers on a complete, secure, API-level synchronization. This means connecting the website behavior data directly into the entire Salesforce ecosystem, including Part-O and that predictive engine, Agentforce AI. And what's crucial here is that an API-level sync bypasses the unreliable nature of client-side tracking, which gets blocked by enterprise browsers all the time.
So this is engineered for true end-to-end data synchronization, capturing, attributing, and making every interaction actionable, from the first touch to the final close, all inside the ecosystem's walled garden.
That holistic server-side flow is what defines it. It's not just a data dump, it's a constantly updated, intelligent pipeline that's feeding itself.
Okay, now this is where the topic gets particularly compelling for me. Since this is all designed for cybersecurity companies, the architecture itself has to meet these incredibly stringent security standards. Let's get into the security-first technical implementation standards. What protocols are we talking about here?
The integration framework has to be paramount in its security design. It starts with bulletproof authentication. They use OAuth 2.0 with JWT tokens. This is a critical detail because it ensures secure authentication without ever exposing permanent user credentials. That's a standard weak point in most integrations.
And how does that compare to, say, a standard login integration we might see in consumer software?
Well, standard logins often require storing or passing around these long-lived API keys. JWT, or JSON Web Tokens, are short-lived, digitally signed, and they verify identity just temporarily. It reduces the attack surface dramatically. It means that if a token is ever compromised, the window for someone to misuse it is tiny.
Excellent. And what about controlling who can even connect to the API in the first place?
That's handled through access control using IP address whitelisting. This restricts API access exclusively to approved server endpoints, so someone can't just hit the API from an unauthorized location. It's classic perimeter defense, but for the data layer. And for the data itself, we have field-level encryption.
Wait, how does field level differ from just standard data encryption? Is this because marketing data has so much PI that Salesforce doesn't automatically encrypt?
That's exactly it. Standard encryption might secure the whole database, but field-level encryption locks down specific sensitive data points, like emails, names, sensitive history, both in transit and at rest. It ensures that even in the highly unlikely event of a breach, the most valuable PII is rendered totally useless.
That attention to detail is why they call it military grade.
It has to be. They also integrate robust monitoring. API rate limiting and monitoring, which is built with SOC2 compliant monitoring to prevent abuse. And for accountability, there's mandatory audit logging, a complete uneditable trail of every single data transaction. This protects the company from external threats and from internal compliance failures.
And just confirming the compliance framework, the architecture is SOC2 Type 2 aligned, which is a huge deal, and GDPR CCPA compliant. The technical specs include RESTful APIs, OpenAPI 3.0, TLS 1.3 Plus for transport security, and AES 256 for encryption, which is essentially the unbreakable standard.
It's just proof that this isn't some off-the-shelf integration. It's a dedicated, hardened pipeline designed to meet the same standards the market demands of them.
Okay, let's talk intelligence. The architecture is the secure vessel. Now let's talk about the high-value data it carries. This is where it gets really interesting for the sales and marketing folks listening. What specific behaviors are being captured?
This is where we stop tracking vanity metrics like clicks and start tracking true intent signals. The layer maintains multi-touch attribution across those long sales cycles. It manages redirects perfectly using UTM parameter inheritance, so the source data stays intact even through secure portals. And yes, it even includes dark social detection, identifying referrals from secure channels like Slack or direct shares, which traditional tracking just can't see.
Dark social detection is huge. But the source outlines some specific, crucial nuggets data points that are unique to selling these kinds of products. What are those high-intent insights?
These are the signals that reveal a prospect's true evaluation status. They track the basics, of course, but the system looks way deeper. It specifically tracks API documentation access and technical blog consumption. I mean, someone looking at API docs is clearly not in the awareness stage. They're testing feasibility.
Wait, they track API documentation access. That's not marketing intelligence. That's practically pre-sales qualification. That's incredible context.
It is. It's qualification by behavior. They also track views of competitive comparison pages. That is a direct signal that the prospect is actively evaluating alternatives. They monitor enterprise team access to pricing structures via pricing page engagement, and they even attempt technical role detection based on content patterns.
I have to ask, though, because this level of tracking is so powerful, isn't tracking someone on a competitive page or API docs a little invasive? How do they balance that need for deep intelligence with privacy, especially with the GDPR alignment?
That's the fundamental question, right? The balance is maintained by sticking to those privacy by design principles we mentioned. They are tracking anonymous behavior until the user converts and consents. And after that, the tracking is limited to first-party data only. So the data never leaves their own secured ecosystem. It never touches a third-party handler. The goal is insight, not surveillance. They're focused on aggregated intent signals, not exposing personal history.
That makes sense. Intelligence within the bounds of compliance. So a sales rep knows if they're talking to an architecture lead or a compliance officer based on their reading history like tracking NIST or ISO content.
Exactly. And to make campaign measurement hyper-specific, they use industry-specific UTM parameters. The source cites examples like UTM content, white paper SOC 2, and upsource dark web monitor. These tailored tags let marketing know precisely which niche campaign is yielding high-intent results.
That level of detail just transforms marketing's budget from a guessing game into a forensic investigation.
And it should shorten the sales cycle dramatically. It just cuts out all that discovery time.
So we have the secure architecture, the deep data is flowing. Let's talk about how this actually works with the core systems.
The key is that the synchronization with Salesforce Core plus Pardot is bidirectional. The website engagement updates the Pardot score, telling marketing who's warming up. Conversely, email engagement from Pardot enriches the Salesforce records, making sure sales has the most current picture.
So they feed each other, eliminating those silos. And this must massively enhance the power of Agentforce AI.
Yes. All those nuanced website patterns, the API views, the competitive comparisons, they are fed directly into Agentforce's predictive models. This allows the AI to initiate intelligent sales sequences based on specific content consumption. We're talking automated playbook triggers.
So if a prospect views the API docs, reads the SOC2 page, and then revisits pricing, Agentforce immediately sees that high-intent sequence and triggers a tailored response. Maybe it alerts a technical architect instead of a general sales rep.
That is the ultimate goal. Automated, hyper-contextual engagement. And because we're talking about a security firm, the implementation is just as rigorous. It's a secure, three-phase process.
Walk us through those stages.
First is assessment, auditing the existing Salesforce setup and designing those API authentication flows. Second is development and testing, and this is crucial. It all happens in isolated staging environments and includes mandatory penetration testing on all API endpoints.
Penetration testing on a marketing integration endpoint. That's a serious step way beyond what most companies do.
It demonstrates the diligence required. And the final stage is deployment and validation. A gradual rollout, data integrity validation, and then the final non-negotiable step, security team sign-off. This architecture doesn't go live until the company's own internal security experts give it the green light.
And a critical detail reinforcing that trust factor. The sources stress no black box solutions, complete code transparency, and zero third-party data handlers.
Which means your data never touches an intermediary platform. It eliminates the risk of relying on multiple vendors just to move data from point A to point B, which is a huge concern with sensitive enterprise prospect info.
All right, let's wrap up with the payoff, the ROI. This is where the business leaders listening really lean in. What are the big business benefits for an organization that invests in this?
The benefits are designed to be tangible. You get shortened sales cycles because reps have complete context right away. You see improved lead qualification using that behavioral data, filtering out the low-intent leads before they waste sales time.
And for marketing, the holy grail, accurate campaign ROI.
Exactly. They finally know which white paper, which threat report is actually driving revenue. But let's expand on enhanced ABM performance. It's more than just tracking visitors from one account. This lets marketing teams aggregate intent signals from, say, 4 different employees at a target company and use that to predict the account's readiness. They can then allocate their most expensive resources, like a solution architect, precisely when the account is reaching peak engagement.
That makes the ROI so much clearer. It's not just saving money. It's deploying resources strategically.
It's turning data into strategic action.
And finally, just to understand the complexity of the digital world this architecture has to master, the sources give us a detailed digital footprint list. It really shows the sheer scope of systems that have to be accounted for.
The technical environment is incredibly diverse. You've got functional platforms like Vimeo and Google reCAPTCHA. You've got analytics platforms like Google Tag Manager and Microsoft Clarity. And critically, they have to integrate and attribute across a huge array of ad platforms, Google Ads, Microsoft Ads, LinkedIn Ads, YouTube Ads. The zero data loss promise has to span all of those channels seamlessly.
This has been a fascinating dive into taking a true security-first approach to a perennial sales and marketing problem. The central theme here is clear. It's a shift from fragmented data and blind spots to complete security-first intelligence.
It's about making sure cybersecurity marketing and sales teams operate with the same power and rigor that the technology itself sells. It's about operationalizing your own internal trust.
So if you're listening to this, here's one final thought to mull over that builds on this powerful source material. We spent time detailing how this integration captures signals that are, way beyond the typical tracking deep technical intent like API documentation access or competitive page views.
So the essential question for you, the learner, is this. How much competitive advantage does a company truly gain when it moves beyond tracking basic downloads to knowing exactly which compliance standards, which technical specs, or which vendor comparisons its enterprise prospects are evaluating right now? The difference between tracking a generic download and tracking granular compliance interest is the difference between a generic pitch and a highly contextual, timely, and successful sale. That level of knowledge is the ultimate weapon in enterprise sales.
Reach out to us at jbuyer.com for comments and questions. Follow us at Buyer Company on social media. And if you'd be so kind, please rate and review us in your podcast app.